Welcome to another episode of Darkest Side of History, where we unravel the lives of the most controversial figures to ever walk this earth. In today's episode, we delve into the chilling story of Jack the Ripper, exploring the infamous Whitechapel murders, the deaths of his victims, the suspects, and the haunting streets of Victorian London. The East End of Victorian London was a harsh and unforgiving place, marked by extreme poverty and squalor. Overcrowded tenements housed entire families in single rooms, often without proper sanitation or ventilation. Lodging houses offered grim options: coffin beds, narrow wooden bunks, or the infamous hangover ropes, where desperate individuals paid a penny to sleep, slumped over a taut rope. Violence and robberies were rife, as the area's crime rate reflected the desperation of its residents. Child mortality was heartbreakingly high, with many succumbing to malnutrition and disease before their 5th birthday. For many, survival in the East End was a daily struggle against crushing poverty and filth. Between 1888 and 1891, the Whitechapel district of London became infamous for a series of brutal murders. 11 women fell victim to violent attacks, with 5 of these cases attributed to an unidentified killer who came to be known as Jack the Ripper. Despite extensive investigations, his identity remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Whitechapel in the late 19th century was a densely populated area of London's East End. Its population exceeded 76,000, with thousands living in overcrowded lodging houses. Many residents faced dire poverty, with few options for employment. Women, in particular, were vulnerable, and an estimated 1,200 worked as sex workers in Whitechapel during this period. The Whitechapel murders began in February 1888 with the attack on Emma Elizabeth Smith, who was assaulted by a gang and later died of her injuries. In August, Martha Tabram was stabbed 39 times, a crime some historians attribute to the Ripper. However, it is the murders of the canonical 5 that bear the hallmarks of a single sadistic killer. Mary Ann Nichols was discovered on 31st August 1888, her throat cut and abdomen mutilated. Annie Chapman followed on 8th September, found with similar injuries and organs removed. Elizabeth Stride, killed on 30th September, had her throat cut but showed no further mutilation, suggesting the killer may have been interrupted. Later that night, Catherine Eddowes was discovered, her body severely mutilated, including the removal of a kidney. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was murdered on 9th November in her lodging room. Her mutilations were so extensive that even seasoned detectives were horrified. The Metropolitan Police launched an extensive investigation, led by Inspector Frederick Aberline. Over 2,000 individuals were interviewed, and 300 were formally investigated. Theories about the killer's identity ranged from local butchers and doctors to foreign immigrants. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber, Montague John Druitt, a barrister, and even prominent figures such as Prince Albert Victor were among the suspects. None were definitively linked to the crimes. Throughout the investigation, over 700 letters claiming to be from the killer were sent to newspapers and the police. Among these, the From Hell letter, accompanied by a piece of a human kidney, supposedly from Catherine Eddowes, received the most attention. Though its authenticity remains disputed, it heightened the sense of terror. After the canonical 5, 4 more women were killed between 1889 and 1891. Alice Mackenzie and Frances Coles, Carrie Brown and the Unknown Woman, also referred to as the Woman with the Glass Eye. While some suggest these murders were the work of the Ripper, others argue they were unrelated crimes, reflecting the ongoing dangers in Whitechapel. By the end of 1888, the murders had sparked widespread panic. Over 50% of residents in Whitechapel lived in extreme poverty, and the police faced accusations of incompetence. This crisis exposed the stark inequalities of Victorian London, as the wealthy looked on from a distance while the East End suffered. Jack the Ripper's crimes remain unsolved. His murders continue to fascinate and horrify, offering a glimpse into the challenges faced by Victorian investigators and the harsh realities of life in Whitechapel. Jack the Ripper has inspired numerous films, including From Hell, 2001, and The Lodger, 1927, as well as graphic novels and paintings such as The Ripper's Revenge, 2015. His influence extends to music as well, with songs like Jack the Ripper by The Who, 1968, Ripper by Judas Priest, 1978, and Nick Cave's Jack the Ripper, 1990, all reflecting his dark legacy. More than a century later, Jack the Ripper remains an enigma. Was he responsible for all 11 murders, or only 5? What is certain is that his crimes forever marked Whitechapel, turning its streets into a macabre symbol of the darkness lurking in history's shadows. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Darkest Side of History. Stay tuned as we continue to explore more of history's most unsettling characters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.